All right. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the U.S. Enterprise Mobility and Security Partner Community Call for May 2017. We are so glad that you chose to spend some time with us today. Just a few housekeeping items as we get started. You, of course, are in a listen-only mode. If you have any questions or feedback for us as presenters throughout today's session, it's down in the lower left-hand portion of your browser. You'll see a chat window. You can go ahead and just submit your questions there, and we'll reply back to you either on the phone or through that private one-to-one chat. Number one question we always get is the session being recorded? Yes, it is. So I need to let you know that. If you don't consent to being a part of a recorded call in listen-only mode, you should disconnect now. The recording will be available sometime either later today or tomorrow, and we'll post the link on our Yammer group, of course, and you'll be able to share that, download it, make use of that throughout your organization and the rest of your week. The slides for today's call are available on our Yammer group. I've posted the link to those in the chat window there. You should see that. You can download those, follow along right now, or go ahead and download them after the call and then be able to engage that way. So let's get started. We have an absolutely packed agenda, and we've got a bunch of stuff to go through today. So I've got some announcements I want to share with you. I want to share some upcoming webinars, some things that are happening there. Changes to partner IURs. So if you're in the silver or gold competency program for the enterprise mobility management, we have changed up the IUR program a little bit, and there's some good news there for you, I think. There's also been some changes to the demo tool. So if you're doing EMS and Office 365 demos on that demos.microsoft.com tool, I've got some more good news to share with you, which I think is going to be fun for everybody. Hopefully it's going to make your life a little easier too, which is great. I'll share with you a sneak preview of what we're going to talk about here in the month of June as we wrap up Microsoft's fiscal year and sort of get into the fun times of summer and a lot of going on with the summer months, which I'm personally very excited for. I'm also going to share with you then sort of our two main topics, and one of them is Intune. Get a lot of questions around how do we do proof of concept. And so the proof of concept conversation is really interesting when you think about how do you go in and guide a customer to implementing Intune in a way that makes sense for them, that's easy to follow, and is going to help accelerate their adoption and also make it easier on their IT staff and on their end users. I've been in some trainings lately where we've had those discussions, and so I gathered what I think are some of the best practices out of that. I'm going to share those with you all today, and hopefully you'll be able to implement those into your practices. And then we're also going to talk specifically about the MAM functionality, the mobile application management, sometimes MAM-WE or MAM-WE it's called. It's without enrollment. So it's not a traditional MDM. It's the ability to protect certain applications and documents in your organization on users' devices without taking control of the entire device. I'm going to show you some tips and tricks, things that I've learned lately that I think will help you in guiding customers through that decision, how to show it to them. That shows really well. Actually, it's one of my favorite features to demo because it really kind of shines and shows the power of Intune. So we're going to dive into that. And then stick around because at the end of that, I'm actually going to pull up something from the probably way too early to show it to you category, but I'm going to show it to you anyway. It's some new features that have dropped into Intune MAM within just the last few weeks here. I'm going to show you those. But I'm going to make a deal with you. And when we get closer to what that is, well, I'll tell you what the deal is. The main thing is there's going to be things that you're going to want in that feature that aren't there yet. I'll give you a little bit of hints as to when they're coming, but you can't over ask questions because I can't give you all the answers today. So stay tuned for that. How's that for a tease towards the end of the call? But let's jump into some of the announcements real quick, just all up for the community. Number one, Microsoft Inspire is coming, and it's coming really fast. July 9th through the 13th is approaching. I was actually just online booking some travel arrangements for it today. I happen to know that the number of tickets available, seats available, are starting to dwindle. A friend of mine helps run this for the United States, and he's telling us that, yeah, if you have partners that want to get into it, book early because we're expecting it to sell out. And so I don't want y'all to miss the opportunity to be there. Last year we did have a complete sellout. There was no more tickets. There was no magic passes. Don't miss that chance. So if you're thinking about getting to Inspire, now's the time to sign up. And for this community, something that I'm excited to announce is that at Inspire, we're going to have some chances for us as a community to connect. So myself and some of my peers that are hosting this community on a regular basis, we're going to be there. We are going to be in the US Lounge in what's called the Connect area, often known as the Expo. And we're going to have times for you to sign up. And I'd actually love to do a one-to-one meeting or a roundtable with some of you. Maybe you can tell me about your practice. Maybe we can brainstorm on ways to help your teams get stronger, better on EMS, sell more, implement more, whatever it is you want to talk about. We're here to be a resource for you. So if you already know you're going to Inspire and you'd like to book one of those times with me, my name's Nick Johnson again. You can go ahead and just look me up on Yammer, send me a direct message and say, hey, Nick, I'm going to be at Inspire. I'd like to book some time with you. We'll go ahead and get that pre-booked for you so that you don't even have to worry about trying to scramble to find a time when we're there. Of course, I know schedules change as the event gets closer. Also, in terms of Inspire, a lot of you have been asking me, well, what are the EMS sessions going to be? What's the track going to be? I got a preview of it last night. It's going to be great. We have some fantastic executive keynote speakers that are going to be talking in some security-focused sessions, sort of the all-up Microsoft security story, as well as things related specifically to enterprise mobility and security. And then there's going to be several breakout sessions that follow along that same track. That whole session catalog is available on the Inspire site now, but what you'll see is as the month of June gets kicked off here, then we'll open up the tool where you can actually then start to schedule those, all the dates and times and rooms and things that go with being at a conference like that will get associated to those individual sessions, and you'll be able to set those up. I'm going to do my best to be at most of those sessions, so hopefully I get a chance to meet a lot of you as well. So don't miss Inspire. For those of you that are new here, and I know there's some of you because we have new people that sign up every single month. This is the Enterprise Mobility and Security Community. Maybe you found us on your own. Maybe somebody told you about us. However you came, we really have 3 ways for you to connect. One is through our Yammer group. You can see the links to all these on the screen there. So one is through our Yammer group. That is where we post all kinds of information. We want you to stay plugged in and really resourced. But it's also a place where you can resource each other. And so if you have questions, put them out there. I love to see how the group interacts with each other. That's really a great experience. The other 2 ways to plug in, you found this one. We have a monthly call. So we have one here this month. We have one in June. We will take a break in the summer. So July we typically don't because of the Inspire conference and things like that. And then we'll be announcing the schedule going into the fall here very soon. And the last way to plug in, of course, is our blogs. We've got some great blogs that have been posted. We've had some of our cloud solution architects that have been writing some blogs lately, really deep technical stuff on that US EMS learning blog. Some of it about the NIST framework, if you're familiar with that, and how that applies to the technologies that Microsoft is bringing to bear on behalf of our customers. So I would strongly recommend that you spend some time and check those out. Also on the announcements front, there's a lot of webinars. I don't know if you get as many emails as I do, but I get a ton of emails about the various security webinars that have been happening. So on behalf of the community, I started just keeping a running list because I wanted to go ahead and just make it a really easy for you to track with. So let me pop this open here. There we go. So in terms of the upcoming webinars, there's 2 that I've got circled here in the month of June, but one I really highlighted, which is going to be led by Ann Johnson, who's one of our senior leaders on the security front inside of Microsoft here. And that's getting the upper hand in the cybercrime fight and how do you do incident response. Don't miss that session. Now, some of you might be saying, oh, I missed some of these sessions in the past. So what the good news is that most of them are archived. And so I went back several months and I started following the archive and posting all those things available. So you can get those here in the slide deck when you download those. You can also go out to the Yammer group, and if you click the Files tab at the top, you'll see a separate PowerPoint file in there called the EMS Webinars. And there's a whole list of those. So you can see these going back all the way now to the beginning of March. There's several of them here as well that have happened just recently in the month of May that I'd highlight for you. There's also one that just happened yesterday that I'd strongly recommend you go spend an hour consuming. It's Microsoft on Trust, Privacy, and the GDPR. And if you don't know what the GDPR is yet, this is your chance to learn. It's a new European Union-based set of regulations that's going to impact almost all of us because we do business internationally. And it's about data privacy and the rules that go with that. So I'd strongly recommend you go watch that session. The other session that I highly recommend, it wasn't officially a webinar, it's a YouTube video, but you can see the big picture of it there in the middle. You're wondering, what is that? That's a video that Brad Anderson, one of our vice presidents who basically leads the enterprise mobility security story across all of Microsoft, he recorded a video. It's just over about 40 minutes long. I tell every single person who is brand new or experienced at any level in EMS, watching those Brad videos, because he usually does one about once a year, is a great investment of your time. You're going to get to hear sort of the latest pitch on why EMS matters. You'll get some insights into the industry and how we see the solutions that Microsoft is offering fitting within the industry, as well as things that are happening outside of what Microsoft is doing. So take some time, sit down, grab a cup of coffee, and watch that Brad Anderson video. When you get this slide deck, you can actually just click right on that screenshot there. That'll take you right into the video on YouTube. Or you can just go look up Enterprise Mobility and Security on YouTube if you want to go straight that way. All right, the other thing that I'd like to point out is that there have been some changes to the demo resources tool. So a lot of you are familiar with this. This is the demos.microsoft.com site. If you've been on there in the last week or so, you see this new portal, and you can see it on my screen here. And this portal has changed a little bit, and what we're actually doing is not only making UI changes, but there's some back-end changes that are happening as well. The biggest change that you're going to see here, and I just found this out last night, so it's kind of late breaking news, but you're going to be able to, you'll probably see this go live in the portal, I'm being told, within a week. There's going to be a new quick tenant option. If you go in there now, you provision a quick Office 365 tenant, you have the ability to mark a checkbox and say, hey, I want to do some EMS demo data as well. That quick option for EMS is going to go from being, roughly in that 4 to 6 hour range to provision to what I'm being told is minutes, not hours. So I don't know if that's 59 minutes or if that's 4 minutes yet. I haven't had a chance to test it because they haven't pushed the code to production yet. But that is something that is coming for all of us, and that it will be in the partner portal on the demos.microsoft.com. When that ships, we will do a blog entry on a podcast entry on our new podcast, which we post on the Yammer group. Right now, we're looking for a podcast platform. I know many of you have told us the various ones you like out there in the world. We're trying to figure out an efficient way to get it out there, but for now, we'll make sure we post it on that Yammer group as an announcement. So that should hit your inbox, and then you'll be able to follow along what's going on the demo side. The other piece that I'm really excited for on the demo side just lit up this week, and so I popped a screenshot in of it here. If you are an MSDN user, and for a lot of you as partners, if you have competencies in the Microsoft Partner Network competency program, you actually have IURs, internal use rights, for MSDN. The vast majority of those actually go unused, which is unfortunate because you're leaving some benefits on the table for yourselves. But if you use those MSDN benefits, what you'll see here is the second box in from the right there is Enterprise Mobility and Security is now in there. And this is a perpetual license. This isn't going to go away. As long as that MSDN subscription is valid, you're going to have a 5-user full EMS E5 license, which is great. So that's something that you can do. You can build that up. You can build your own private little test environment, demo system for customers, whatever you need to do. It does not have sample data, right? It's a clean tenant, so you'll be able to provision it however you want. If you want that sample data experience, that's going to be on the demos.microsoft.com. I'd say that also to announce that if you have been paying attention in the last week or so, the IURs for partner organizations that were using EMS E3 have now been lit up for E5. So that is now the full IURs. So if you're in the EMM Silver or Gold competency program, you can now get the full EMS E5 licenses, which is really, really great for all of us as partners. I know a lot of you have been saying, hey, when can I turn on some of those additional features, which is great. You can now. All right. I see some questions in the queue. Some folks saying, yeah, I provisioned a tenant a while ago and I'm waiting for that to complete. I'm presuming that's on the demo site. That is true. That is still the experience today. The faster provisioning will be lighting up here within the next week or so. And then there was a question about the MSDN licenses. Is there perpetual demo licenses for Office 365? And the answer is, I think so, but I'm actually going to verify that. And when I do the podcast about the demo resources change, I'll make sure to talk about it in there and post it on the Yammer group. I'm being told that it is. I can't yet confirm if it's EMS E5 or EMS, I'm sorry, Office 365 E5 or E3 still. That's the difference there. I just don't know that. But we'll get that found out for y'all. All right, let me jump ahead here a little bit. Preview what's coming in June. So we're going to do a couple of different topics. One is building an EMS training plan. A lot of you have told us, yes, we go on the Yammer group, we download that Excel file. It's got all kinds of great links into it. We're working to get that updated for you with, sort of the latest changes and product announcements and things like that, new trainings that have been in there. But we're also going to help you if you're a practice lead or an EMS lead within your business and you want to help yourself build a training plan, or you want to help others around you build a training plan, or maybe you want to build one for a customer. There's a lot of different methodologies that go into building training. You can go online, you can hit a search engine and just say, I want to find some EMS training. Yeah, you'll probably find some good stuff out there, but how do you approach it with an intentional purpose? And that's what we're gonna focus on, is building an EMS training plan. And then we're also going to talk about Inspire. So I talked about that a little bit ago. By then, everything in terms of the schedule will be available and out. So if you're attending Inspire, I want to make sure that we spend a little bit of time. We'll do it at the end of that call for those of you that are going to be at Inspire. Just to align schedules, I'll share with you what I think are sort of some great resources and practices, and just ways for you to connect when you're at the event. All right, so I know that was a ton of really good, hopefully community announcements. We spent a little bit more time on that than we typically do, but I wanted to make sure that you had all those in your hands. So we'll shift gears a little bit, and I want to share with you some of the things that I've been learning lately around Intune Proof of Concepts. And this comes from some videos that I've watched, some trainings I've sat in, both internal and external facing, but from the internal ones I do have permission to share it with you all as partners. There's some really good teams inside of Microsoft that have been out there helping customers drive Intune, drive adoption, and I grabbed some of what I think are the best practices from them and pulled it together, and I thought we'd just walk through those real briefly as a community just so you can see those. I think there's going to be some resources you're going to want to grab hold of, implement into your business, and then use as you move on into your customer engagements. So I'm going to stay on this slide here for a little bit, and I'm going to follow the blue dots with the numbers in it, and obviously I'm going to start at number 1. The way that this is built, it's actually modeled on the concept of going and sitting down with a customer and doing a probably 2 to 4 hour planning session. I've seen this be done a little bit shorter. It could be a little bit longer, but typically in that 2 to 4 hours, kind of a half day range, or maybe a few hours before lunch, a few hours after, whatever works for you and for your customer. But the goal is to actually go in and sit down, and maybe the customer's already purchased Intune, or they're really thinking about doing a proof of concept. Whatever they're at, the proof of concept deployment versus production deployment, a lot of these methodologies will apply to both. The first thing you want to do is sit down and say, all right, let's talk about your goals and the scope of the project. Because unfortunately, what happens with a lot of customers, and hopefully you haven't experienced this, but it does happen, is they'll buy EMS and they decide, yep, we need an MDM, or we need something to manage our mobile applications, and they just go into Intune and start flipping things on and rolling out policies. And then there's a little bit of hecticness that gets associated with that. It could be user revolt, it could be IT help desk revolt, or it could be all of the above. But those are the projects that typically end up taking much longer, and they're not super successful. And so what we want to do is leverage a framework to go in and drive the customer through a sensible conversation to build out a plan. And that starts with identifying their goals. And when you do that, they might kind of give you the deer in the headlights look, like, we haven't really thought about the goals for the project. We just know we need an MDM, or we've been told we need an MDM. And that's okay. It's important to discuss it no matter what it is. And they might have different motivations, right? They might be moving off a prior MDM. Maybe they've got a license that they've purchased that's expiring. They've decided to move over to EMS for some reason. Maybe they have never had one and they're looking to get into it. Maybe they're coming off something a little bit more legacy, like an Exchange Active Sync, right, where it's just kind of securing email and they're going, we like that functionality, but we want more. Whatever it is, it's important to get those goals on a whiteboard. And the goal might be, we just need to secure all our executives, or we need to secure our mobile sales force. The key here is make sure that you get all the right stakeholders in the room, not just the IT leadership. So if you have people that are, somebody that can represent the end users, somebody that can represent the corporate sponsorship of the particular project that they're on, getting all those folks in the room will typically start to bubble up what are the various goals and things that they have, and then what are the challenges. And the challenges are going to be, they're going to vary per organization, but some of them might be hard and fast requirements based on an industry or a regulatory body. Some of them might just be corporate policy. Some of them might be physical challenges about rolling things out to a very distributed workforce. Whatever those are, it's important to get all those on the board. Once you know that, then you start to identify the use cases, right? And so when you identify those use cases, you're going to figure out, all right, who are we rolling this out to? That's a great way to start. Like, who are we protecting? Are we protecting corporate users on corporate devices? Are we protecting corporate users on personal devices? Are we protecting vendors of something who have a corporate identity in our Active Directory? Are we doing just a pure bring your own device scenario? We've got the corporate stuff managed through another policy. Maybe they're all Windows PCs and we're using System Center, whatever it might be. It's important to understand who all those groups are, and then what are the use cases? So the use cases might be, are they going to be purely mobile? Are they just protecting documents? Do we need to secure the entire device? Do we need to push applications out to them? All those things that we as people who work with Intune every day know it's capable of doing. The partners don't often do that. The customers don't often do that. The partners are the ones who know. And so we need you all to go in there and start to walk through those various use cases and say, all right, which ones to you as a customer matter and which ones don't? And then find out what platforms are being used as well. So you're really going to want to understand those device requirements, the platforms. Is it pure iOS, pure Android? There's a mix of Windows and Android and iOS, or PCs, or just all mobile devices or tablets. Do they have LTE built into it? Are they all on just Wi-Fi? I mean, there's a lot of things that you're going to want to start to identify. And the reason why we're doing all this is once you have sort of aligned those first two buckets and you have the goals, you have the use cases, you have the groups that it applies to, and you've got the types of devices it applies to, all of a sudden you've started to define requirements for the project, because the requirements all need to be satisfied within those things. And so even just by leading the customer through that discussion, you've then built a baseline set of requirements that are going to help you do the next 3 steps on this planning meeting that you're having. And really that next step is, and actually let me throw a note in there too though. One thing that I want to caution that I've seen happen is building a proof of concept based on features. So what happens is a customer will buy any MDM solution, and they buy it because they see some really shiny features. They don't know if they necessarily need those or not. So what I typically do is let the customer define the requirements first. Then as a partner or as a Microsoft person, we come in and then talk about the features that'll help fill those requirements. So don't design the proof of concept to absolutely go after certain features if they're not really relevant to a customer. And I think I'm being Captain Obvious here on that one, but it does happen out there. So really it's let the customer define the requirements and then you align features to it. You might find some gaps. And if you do, then you're going to have a conversation with the customer about those gaps. But it's really important to let the customer define the requirements. Don't build the project around what the MDM can do just because it looked good in the demo. That's really sort of the message there. So once you've got those requirements, then you need to start determining a rollout plan. And a rollout plan is not just going into Intune as an administrator and turning on all the knobs and switches. Right? That is a deployment plan. So deployment is where you're going to go in and actually configure the service. But the rollout plan is much, much bigger. Right? You have to figure out how are you going to roll this out and to whom and in what timelines. And so let me unpack that just a little bit, right? You're going to want to pitch which groups you've gone first. And if you look back at step number 2, you've identified the groups that are going to be a part of this. So you want to identify who are we going to target first. If it's a proof of concept, maybe you're going to spend some time and go after, you know what, let's look at, I don't know, let's look at the IT users. Or maybe we've got some technology adopters in the company who are just real champions for the latest and greatest. They're a great group to help us pilot it first. But you've got to target which groups you're going to go after first. Don't forget to take into account that there are business cycles. I know, like right now in Microsoft, we're in our Q4. Corporate IT is probably not going to roll out a whole lot of pilot programs to our sellers in our Q4. In Q1, all bets are off, right? The sellers might get all kinds of things, and some of them are on this call and they're probably laughing about that. But that's the things you need to take into consideration. Also, the politics of it. If you've got maybe there's a split inside a company about, some people wanted to purchase one solution over Intune or vice versa. Make sure that you've got your real champions are on board and a part of the pilot program. And the people that could potentially have negative sway over it, we want to make sure that they're a little bit further down the line until we've landed everything and worked out all of the kinks, because that's really what a proof of concept will help us do. So just make sure you're factoring in those business cycles and politics and so on. So the determination of that rollout plan, there's a lot that goes into that. You also have to figure out what's your enrollment approaches. So what I mean by that is, how are you going to help users enroll? Are you going to give sort of a self-service experience where maybe they get some emails ahead of time, it's got some documents attached, and it says, hey, on this day, you're going to be eligible to enroll in this new service. It's mandatory. We need to protect your device. We need to protect our company. And here's how you do it. Maybe it's that. Maybe it's some videos you're going to do. Or maybe it's a little bit more white glove. Maybe you're going to have an opportunity for some of your experts or your project members to go and sit in a certain office. Or maybe they go sit in a common area. Could be a cafeteria or in the coffee shop in the building or whatever it is. And you say, hey, users, you can go enroll yourself, but if you'd like us to help, come on over and visit us. We'll be at the desk from 10 to 3, and we'll be there to help you get your device enrolled. That's really important, right? And that sort of leads directly into the next thing, which is communications. So you've determined this whole rollout plan, but you also have to figure out how are you going to communicate it. I know I'm an end user. I have my own devices, and if I get something that says, hey, you have to do this today, it's mandatory, that interrupts my workflow. And so what I really like to do is when somebody running a project and they're going to have something that impacts me, and they start sending out communications like 2 to 3 weeks ahead of time, and it says, just a heads up, this is coming your way. Here's what it's going to be. If you want to opt in now, you can. If you want to wait till the mandatory day, you can. Here's exactly what you're going to experience on that day. Rollouts of a mobile device management platform, especially, or a MAM platform, are something that I would strongly encourage you to over-communicate, because it's really going to impact the end users. It impacts how they get their work done. You can't probably get away with sending just one email or posting a notice on something and hoping everybody reads it. I know I miss emails. Everybody does. So it's over-communicate. Then you have to figure out how are you going to train users, right? And you're thinking, well, enrollment's not that bad. We can train them on a document. But when you think about training, don't just think about the MDM. Don't just think about Intune and the company portal and here's how you sign up and then you're enrolled. You have to think about all the applications that you're pushing to them as well. If they're switching from a native email client onto the Outlook email client, what training are you going to give them on that Outlook email client? Or if they're going into a scenario where they're getting a line of business app and they've never used it on a mobile device before, make sure the training for that app is a big part of it as well. It's pretty easy once enrollment starts to get people over the enrollment hurdle, but the long-term adoption success is going to be, are they happy with the apps that they're being empowered to use in their day-to-day work? So this is really good guidance for all of us as implementers, is make sure that we're going out and really investing in training, not just the MDM, not just Intune, but everything that comes after it as well. And don't forget to train the help desk. So if you spend all your time on the users and nobody in the help desk knows how to support them when they call, that's going to create a negative experience on both sides. So make sure that you're investing in doing some training for that help desk. Could be some hands-on training. The company goes out and buys a few of the common devices that they might be getting calls on, lets them enroll them and unenroll them and do all those things, right? but make sure the help desk has training on the service, knows how to escalate if something happens and they can't fix it. Is there a tier 2 or a tier 3 process that's in place? Having all that will really create a great experience for the help desk as well. And oftentimes they will determine the success of the program, because if they can answer the customer calls quickly, that's a great experience for everybody. If it's frustrating and people just say, you know what, forget it, I'm not gonna enroll, that's not gonna help success the project. And so we really want to do that. And that sort of leads directly into that support process as well. So we just want to make sure that they feel supported in that. Build a knowledge base as well. Most help desks have this, so I don't need to dive into that, but being able to do that knowledge base is really important. Also, one other note on training, and this oftentimes gets overlooked, especially in the bring your own device scenarios and people coming in. Don't forget to teach your support people and your end users how to unenroll. We often think, great, we're going to make a big pitch, we're going to enroll everybody. And then we forgot to unenroll them or teach them how to unenroll, because users switch devices. It happens. People drop phones, they drop tablets, they get new ones, they're refreshed, whatever the reason. They have to be able to unenroll and then re-enroll in the new device. So make sure you teach them how to do that as well, or have a place where they can go find the documentation on that. Don't forget that. That's sort of the bookend on the end of the proof of concept. And so make sure that that's a resource for everybody. And then there's the outcome. So the outcome of this entire meeting really is you've now built a high-level plan. You took it all the way from goals to very tangible. How are we going to communicate this? How are we going to train the end users? How are we going to deploy the services? Because once we knew what the users required, if they require, we got to have pins, or we have to have secure documents. Those are the requirements for actually deploying Intune and then rolling it out to the users. So then you can start doing the designing and the onboarding and the testing, and then eventually get to the production rollout and support. Now, everything I told you, when I first sat through this session, I kind of went, wow, that is a lot. I wish I had some deeper notes than just one slide. The good news is there is. The team that put this together, and I'm giving them full credit for this, they do amazing work. They put this together, and down at the bottom of this slide, you actually see there's a link. It's a hyperlink to a deployment planning, design, and implementation guide. When you click on that link, you're going to get taken out to the docs.microsoft.com site, and this is that deployment planning guide. And if you look down the left-hand column, you'll see that there are different sections that walk you through that. The one I draw your attention to is actually at the very bottom, and it's that red box that I dropped on the screen there, and it's additional resources. And when you click on those additional resources, you're going to get another view, and right in the middle of that additional resources page, there's a templates box. When you click on that templates box, there's a little hyperlink kind of buried right in the middle of the screen. I wish it was a bit bigger, but it's not, so I highlighted it in red for you. When you click on that, it's going to take you to a download page. And that download page is a place where you can actually then download the entire set of templates that go along with the process I just talked you through. And those templates look a little something like this. So you're going to get it's a multi-page document. It walks you through all those steps I just talked about on that slide. It's going to walk you through every single one of those. So best practice is take 2 people into the meeting, at least from your organization. One of you can lead the discussion, and the other person can be sitting there quite literally typing out all of the things that go into this implementation guide or this planning document as they're being discussed in the meeting, so that at the end of the day, you have a very strong draft at a minimum of the entire rollout plan, all the way from goals to implementation and user adoption for this customer, which is really going to help speed things up, because then you can start going and assigning ownership and assigning deadlines. Your deadlines might be because their other MDM license is expiring, and so you got to work backwards on the math on that. Or it could be that you're actually going in and saying, oh, we're going to set a deadline. We want to be ready by August 1st, and then you build in the calendar accordingly. But this lets you walk away with an entire plan. This is available to you as partners. You can go download it. You can start using it with your customers. There's a really great set of resources there for you. So I just wanted to call that out. When you think about deploying Intune, so I'm going to shift gears here a little bit away from that proof of concept discussion and into one particular slice of the technology in our remaining minutes here. But when you think about deploying Intune, there's really sort of three buckets, right? A lot of you that have spent a lot of time on Intune, you know this. If you're new to the Intune world, this is sort of the three ways you can deploy it. One is cloud only. That would be kind of your born in the cloud customers. There's a hybrid scenario, and that's for a lot of legacy customers have System Center Configuration Manager in play. They've been using it to manage desktops for quite some time. You can also do that's called a hybrid mode then, where Intune comes into play and can manage those mobile devices as a part of that. You set an authority, and some of those things work. They work, very well together. The last piece, and it's on the right-hand side of this slide, is Intune MAM. So it's called Mobile Application Management WE, or WE, or without enrollment. You kind of get set all three ways. And that allows you to protect corporate data and corporate documents on users' devices without having to enroll the device in a service. Now, why does that get used, right? Well, on this next slide, you can kind of see there's some scenarios that really fit into this. So one is you've got on the left your traditional company managed device. And that really is a great mobile device management scenario. The company wants to be able to control the entire device. But as you move across the top of this slide, you'll see, hey, you've got employee managed devices. Maybe it's more of a, we give a budget, the users go out, they pick one of a dozen devices, we buy it for them, but they get to manage it on their own. Or it's third-party managed, so maybe you've already got an MDM in place, and that MDM can't be pulled out for whatever reason. Maybe there's a long-term contract or something, but the customer still wants to be able to do some additional document security and protection, and that's where MAM comes in. And MAM also shows really, really well for every single Office 365 customer that's out there. It is the best way to enhance the experience of Office 365 users. Office 365 is already familiar to them. They're probably already using a lot of the mobile applications on whatever device they have. So being able to then protect the corporate data in those documents without overstepping the bounds and taking control of the user's personal device is a big deal. And I always challenge customers to think about this, right? What is the amount of data that you put into Word, Excel, PowerPoint, so on, every single day in the Office suite? And how much of that data is critical to your organization where you'd want to protect it, especially from what I call accidental data leakage? A lot of this, we've probably had this experience. Somebody sent us a file that we opened it and we went, wait a minute, I don't think this was for me. And then you look on the to line, it was actually for somebody else. I have a real common name in the company. It's Nick Johnson. I get emails for the other Nick Johnsons at Microsoft. There's, I think, 5 of us now. I get emails for them all the time. And it'd be great if that accidental data leakage didn't happen. But we also want to protect users from, more intentionally taking data outside of the company. They might want to copy something from their corporate email into their personal account so that they can look at it at home. But we don't necessarily want that to happen because we don't know if that personal account is completely secure. We don't know how the company manages the privacy on that data. We don't know if it's compliant, if we're in a compliant-based industry. That's a big deal. And so what we want to do is create a scenario where we can, like in this example here, on Microsoft Word, we want to be able to protect Word, specifically protecting the corporate data that's in Word without touching the user's personal data. Or in Outlook, if they've got multiple email profiles, we want to be able to protect corporate data, but not block personal data from happening. And so what I want to do is take a few minutes to walk you through. If you've never done MAM without enrollment on Intune, it's really, really easy. It demos really well. So earlier in the call, I talked about the demos.microsoft.com tool. This is one of the things that you can spin up a tenant, and in a matter of like less than an hour, you can be demoing this, which is really great. It shows really well and it resonates with end users. There is kind of an administrative side that you can talk about, and there's an end user side, and I'm going to show you a little bit of both. And on the end user side, I'm going to show you some of the tricks that I use when I demo it, so that when you show it to your customers, you'll be able to highlight certain things that I think will provide value to them. So I am going to flip into a demo of my screen here, so if you'll bear with me just a moment. All right, here it comes. So now that I'm in my screen, I'm actually inside the Azure console, because all of the MAM without enrollment stuff exists within the Intune piece within Azure. So I've got it pinned right here on my start board as a big tile, just to make it easy to find. And this is so easy to set up. All you have to do is you come in here and you click this All Settings button. So you'll see it highlighted in blue of this kind of this box right at the top here, the lower right-hand corner of that. And where you start is actually just with an app policy. And an app policy is where you define what apps you're going to protect, what protection policies are going to be in place, and then who it's going to be applied to. So in this case, I'm going to click Add a New Policy, and I'm just going to give this a new name. Call this iOS v2 for simplicity's sake. You could give it a description. In demo purposes, description's not so important. If you're in a company that's got many different policies, descriptions are a great way to give yourself a little more usability and functionality in terms of understanding what are we going to do with that. So the first thing you're going to want to do is select what are the apps you want to create. And you can see out of the box, by default, for the iOS platform, you can see here's all the different applications that I can put protection in. And what we call these applications is that they're MAM aware or MAM enlightened. You might hear both of those terms. And that means that they've got the MAM, the Mobile Application Management SDK, built into them. So you're looking at this list, and if you're like me, the first time I saw it, I said, well, that's a lot of really great Microsoft Office apps. What about other apps? So we are working with other third-party vendors to integrate our SDK into their products, and eventually they will start to show up here. Not in a position where we can announce who those are yet, because those companies will be on, it'll be a partnership where we'll announce those things together. But you may also have homegrown line of business apps that you want to secure. There is a MAM SDK available where you can go and put a wrapper around those apps and make those MAM enlightened. So then you could have them show up here as well, and you could protect those on the devices. And you'd be able to do some of the restrictions and configurations that I'll show you here in just a second. But in this case, I'm going to select just to protect a few things. I'm going to select Word, Excel, Skype for Business. Maybe we'll do Outlook and OneNote. Oh, I lost my click there. That's okay. I'm going to select those, and then I get to configure the settings. Now, if you're familiar with a core MDM or Intune, you've probably seen settings like this before. This is a more restricted list because we're not taking over the entire device. We're just protecting what can happen in those applications. So you can say, I'm going to prevent iTunes and iCloud backup for the app. It's not the entire device, but I'm going to prevent it for that app. So if I don't want them to be able to back up from inside of Outlook, into iTunes, that's where I'm going to put that. Do I want to allow data to transfer between apps? Do I want to prevent a save as? So the user can't take a document and save it directly onto their device because that device could be misplaced, it could be stolen, whatever that is. We don't want to let them do that. So I'm going to prevent the save as. I can restrict cut, copy, paste between apps. If you're going to demo this to a customer, this is one of the easiest and probably best demos to show. So I always turn on, let's only copy between policy managed apps. You can restrict web content. So if there's links in an email, that it's going to say, you know what, this can only be applied within the managed browser. You can encrypt data. You can disable contacts to the local device. You can disable printing, which is a really nice feature. And then there's sort of the access controls, right? You can say we want to make sure that there's a PIN in place, and the PIN would be on the app. So it's not on the entire device, but you could say, hey, if the device does have a PIN already, maybe it's enforced by another MDM, or it's Intune, because Intune MDM and Intune MAM can play together. You would just say, yes, we want to disable that. Require corporate credentials, block manage apps, jailbroken, and then minimum operating system controls. I'm not going to go through every single one of those for you, but that's kind of the view of what you can get. So then what you can do is if I click OK, and then I'm going to click Create, it's going to create a brand new policy, and you can see in my policy list here, it's the second one down, it now says deployed is no. The way that you deploy a policy, oops, I'm going to click on it here, is you assign it to a user group. If you're familiar with Intune the way it was, Intune had its own user groups that you had to maintain. That is now changed. It's all integrated with Azure Active Directory, which if you've got the Azure Active Directory Connect tool, it's also integrated back to your on-premises world. So what you can do here is go user groups, and then you would just pick a group or multiple groups that you want to deploy this to. So I'm just going to search. I think I've got a bug bashers group here, and I'm going to search for that. I'll just put it in my engineering group. Bug bashers group might have got deleted. So once I've assigned it to that group, I can close these windows, go back to my policy screen. You can now see that that is deployed. So that's it on the administration side. It really is that easy to deploy out. So the question then becomes, well, what does it look like for an end user? How do we make that connection, especially when we're demoing it to a customer, right? So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to bring up my iPad that I've got. And this is a device that I just went down to my local electronics store here not that long ago and I bought this. It's just an iPad mini. So if you're doing a demo, this is just kind of an easy little tool to carry along with you to make this function. So let me get the screen going here. There we go. So what I like to do is the first thing I do is I go into the native mail app. And I had configured, I didn't have time to show this to you today, but I had configured conditional access. And conditional access basically says, you know what, for Exchange, we want to make sure that our users who use Exchange to connect into the MAM service or into Exchange only use a supported application, in this case, which would be Outlook. So when I configured a brand new email address that's corporate in the native iOS mail app, this is all I got. I got one single email saying, nope, you can't do this. You need to have Outlook. So it's really a nice feature to be able to just show to customers that, hey, you can control this. I should probably put my rotation lock on there. Sorry about that. But if I flip over to Outlook, what you'll see is, there you go. I'm being prompted for that PIN. So in my policy, I had a PIN required to be able to access that application. So I'm going to put on the PIN. And now that I'm in Outlook, and what you'll see right away by default, and this is where I like to start with customers, is showing them, hey, if you see this, you've got a corporate email address. You can see that's connected to Exchange. And I've also got a personal email address that I set up as just a demo for this. So I'm going to connect into my corporate email. And what I want to do is just grab some data out of this and see if I can't put it somewhere else, because I'd like to use it in other parts of my organization. So I'm just going to copy some of the data out of this email. Oops. Select that, and I will copy that. And the first thing I'd like to do is just paste it into another email within the context of my organization, right? So if I put it in here, I have the paste option. You can see it pasted no problem. So what I like to do is say, well, hey, what I'd actually like to do is switch this into another corporate or another non-corporate email address. It actually blocks me from doing that because it knows that that data is corporate, it's protected by the MAM policy. It's not going to let me switch that. I can't change the sender. So, okay, then no problem. What I'll actually do then is I'll switch mailboxes, and I'll go into here, and I'll paste that. And you can see instead of the data being pasted, I'm given a notice that's saying, you can't do this. You can't put your company's data here. So that's a really easy demo that you can show to customers. And you can also say, well, you know, let's step outside the boundaries of Outlook. Maybe if we actually just try to go put it into the default notes application within iOS, what would happen there? So I'm going to go ahead and paste here. And actually, when I hit the paste button, you can see, same message. It doesn't allow me to extend outside the boundaries of my organization. So it's great for data protection within that. Now you're thinking, okay, well, let's go copy it and put it in a Word document. So this is just a tip too. When I do a demo of this, I always pre-install all these. These are not from an MDM. I just went straight to the store and got these and downloaded those. But I've configured Word, so I'm going to go into Word. We're going to wait for that to open here. Hopefully that will open in just a second. There it is. So now I'm in Word, and it's actually, there's a document that I was working on, so it saved that for me, but I'm going to get rid of that. I'm going to delete that draft here, and I'm going to start a brand new document. And what you can see, if you were keen-eyed there, let me go back just one second. Up in the upper left-hand corner, you'll see there's Isaiah's login. That's his corporate identity. But when I go to the document, what happens is, if I try to paste that and I hit paste, I get the same message. And this is something I always like to show in demos and also warn you of as a partner, because this is something that could actually pop up. The document has not yet been defined as a corporate document because it hasn't been saved within the boundaries of what we consider our corporate environment, which would be on SharePoint or OneDrive versus on the local device, because that was blocked by the policy. So I'm going to go back. I'm going to actually delete that draft, and I'm going to open up a recent document, which is, if you look, shared on my, or saved on my OneDrive within the corporate boundaries. So I hit paste, and then that'll actually paste that data right in there. So if a user starts a new document, the best practice is to save it immediately, even when it's blank, onto their SharePoint site. That puts it within the corporate boundary, or onto their OneDrive in the corporate boundary, and then it allows them to work with it under the MAM protection policies, which is a really great demo to be able to show to customers that it's that aware that it knows what you're doing. The other thing that I like to show is, so I'm going to open up Excel, and I actually haven't opened this since I installed it on the device. So I always hold sort of one application in reserve to be able to show what that looks like for an end user. So I'll say I'm going to get started. I don't care about notifications. I'm going to create and edit documents. And within just a couple of seconds here, as this document now goes out and it checks with the MAM service, I'm going to get a pop-up that says, your organization is now protecting the data in the app. You need to restart it to continue. So if I hit OK, walk it through a restart cycle, I'll be good to go. And this is now within the boundaries of my corporate protection within MAM. So those are just a few of the things that you can show on the iPad experience. You could do the same on Android. It works within Android or Android for work. So you can do the same on both of those as well. But I wanted to show you that because that's a really easy demo to show. The other thing you might be seeing on my screen there is the Azure Authenticator app that's kind of in the lower left-hand corner. It's the blue icon with the lock on it. If you've set up the multi-factor authentication or anything within the Office 365 environment, having that Authenticator app will just save you a lot of time from typing in usernames and passwords over and over. So I would just go ahead and pre-install that, authenticate once to the corporate service with that, so then that's set up for your demo. But being able to show customers how you can quickly move between the boundaries of your corporate data but not extend outside of it is a really nice demo that you can show. Now what I want to do in the category, and I told you this at the beginning, in the category of probably way too early to talk about it, but we're gonna anyway because it's kind of fun. If you were keen-eyed while I was building the policy, you notice that there is now a Windows 10 platform policy option here. So MAM without enrollment did not exist on Windows 10 until just last month. And this actually came with the Windows 10 Creators Update. So if you're using an older build of Windows still, you're not going to see this yet. You might see it in the Intune portal, but you won't be able to actually implement it on your end device. And so same thing, you can do a policy, you can choose what apps are allowed, and this is where I'm going to make a deal with you. Because a lot of you are going to say, well, what about app? And you're going to fill in the blank because there's hundreds of Windows-based apps that we all know and love. This is brand new stuff. A lot of stuff is coming on this. So let me just show you what's there today. So you can see this is the list of applications that are there today. Most conspicuously missing is Office Desktop, right? Outlook, Word. You can see the mobile versions that come from the store, but you don't see the newest one. That is coming. The product group has confirmed it's coming. It should be available later this summer or sometime this summer is what they're telling us. So what I'm going to do is make a deal with y'all as the community that when this drops and has more features in it, we're going to invite some of the product team members to come on and do a much deeper dive within the MAM piece within Windows 10. But I did go ahead and configure this because I wanted to show you a little bit of what it looks like. So I'm going to go to a Windows 10 client that I'd spun up. And I'm using the default mail client because I can protect that. So you can go and test this today if you so desire. And I'm going to go ahead and just grab some of that same data out of that same information. And I'm just going to move over to a personal email box again. And I'm going to just start to spin up a brand new mail from that. I'm going to try to paste that in. And you can see, I had set my policy to say, yes, you can give access to do this, but it's not necessarily allowed. You can fully restrict it as well, but for demo purposes, I wanted to show the option to enable it. So I'm going to give access. It allowed me to paste that. That action was logged. An administrator could go watch that for me. There's going to be a lot more coming in the Windows 10 MAM piece that's going to help with browser security. So you're going to have sort of that managed browser experience right within Microsoft Edge and Internet Explorer. You're going to have it in the default desktop applications. There's a lot more coming. So I know you're probably burning with questions on that. So let me just flip over and look at the message queue just to see if there's any questions. Is Windows 10 MAM tied to Windows Information Protection? The answer is absolutely yes. Those two services integrate very closely together to make that happen. How do you wipe data on a MAM with WE environment? That is an awesome question. So let me go back, and I'm going to go back into my, I'm just going to probably get a warning here that tells me I need to save this, but I'm going to ignore it. If I go back to my home screen for the MAM policy, you'll see there's a wipe request, and I can then initiate a wipe request based on a user, and I can actually, you can see my user Isaiah is the guy I've been using for samples this week. And if I select the device, you can see there's lots of devices that I could choose from. I've been using the same iPad over and over. If I click on that, hit select, what that will do, it'll queue up a request, and the next time he logs in and tries to connect to the service, he'll get a prompt on his end client that says, hey, you're no longer being protected. We are wiping the corporate data off your device. And then they're gone. It's gone. It's as simple as that. So it's really easy to do. The user can also initiate it simply by going into their individual device and signing out of their corporate identity. It will do the exact same action, but they can initiate it if, if they leave the company, want to get a new device, don't want to call the help desk, that's the way they can do it. All right, so let me flip back to the screen here as we get into the last couple minutes of our call. I'm going to jump back up to the PowerPoints here. So I did put some MAM without enrollment resources in here. There's a documentation page that's really great. I follow it for a lot of the stuff I showed you today. There is a blog that somebody wrote on the Windows 10 experience as it exists today. I thought it was really good. I used it to set up the demo that I showed you. That'll be a great resource. There'll be way more coming on that, and I will commit to you as a community that we will get that out to you here very soon. And then we did a post on the EMS community blog just about the MAM without enrollment experience as well. So that's a really good resource for you. All right. So let me jump back. I'm going to look at the queue real quick and see if there's other questions. Is Windows 10 MAM going to be version dependent? Enterprise, Pro? As of right now, it works on Enterprise because that's sort of the de facto piece where you've got the full Windows information protection and all that. I don't know if it'll be something that we'll be able to turn on in Pro at a certain point in time. That'll come from the product team later on. There's also a question for MAM with enrollment or without enrollment. Should we still use the old Silverlight portal? The answer is generally no. So if your tenant on Intune has been migrated up to the Azure portal, that's where you should be doing all of your Intune work today. There's still a few tenants that are hanging around on the old Silverlight portal, but MAM-WE is all done within Intune on the new portal. You don't really use the old portal for that. Let's see, question about, the policy manage app setting. Does that limit copying to applications in the same policy, or is that app covered by a different policy, not necessarily the same one? That is within the same policy as far as I know. So yeah, that would be, so I assume you're wanting to say, hey, we're going to have a policy for corporate email and a policy for documents. But I'm going to actually test that just to be sure, and then I'll post a note onto the Yammer group later because that's a very, very good question. How are PDFs handled? There is a PDF viewer. I don't know if it's in there today or if it's coming, but there's going to be a PDF viewer similar to the managed browser experience. So if there's a link in a document or an email that says, hey, I'm going to take you out to browser, instead of you dropping into Safari or Chrome or whatever, it's going to then drop you into the Intune managed browser experience. And I think that's all the questions that are in the queue. Oop, one more pop in. Yeah, okay, so there was not a PDF reader as of today. I know I've heard that there's one coming, so be on the lookout for that as well. But you could also, if you were in a hurry to get one out there, you could wrap a PDF viewer with that SDK and put it in there, just sort of through the developer, the channels as well. All right, so we are at the end of our time. I want to honor that with everybody and just say thank you for coming today. This was a great call. I hope you found some value in it, and we will be talking to you next month, and we'll see you on Yammer in the meantime. Thanks, everybody. Have a great day.